At their convention, they had union leaders and CEOs. They had Democratic Party icons and lifelong Republicans.
It was great when Jon Stewart recently attacked the Democratic National Committee. On The Daily Show, he not only revealed the blatant dishonesty of the party, but he also took Kamala Harris down with him. And when someone like Stewart criticizes his own party,
Democrats had people who prosecuted sexual predators and
so harshly, you can see the cracks are starting to show. I swear we have all the juicy details. If you haven't already, click the subscribe button because you won't want to miss any more videos like this. Indeed. If you will, the Democrats...
They had a guy yelling, "Screw the billionaires," followed immediately by a very happy billionaire.
The Democratic Party is rife with contradictions. As a result, I often call them performative. They sacrifice their individuality in order to make accommodations for every group. For a party that claims to endorse progressive principles, some of its policies are obviously outdated. And Jon Stewart? He calls it out precisely in his hilarious assault. This is why he is so deserving of praise. At a time when most media outlets, even late-night presenters like Jimmy Kimmel, are reluctant to address these topics, Stewart shows genuine bravery. It takes courage to disagree with your own opinion, especially in situations where groupthink is common. But Stewart isn't afraid to ask the uncomfortable questions. And for that reason, his voice sounds so fresh right now. Bernie.
We need an economy that works for all of us, not just the billionaire class. My fellow Americans, when 60% of our people live paycheck to paycheck, the top 1% have never, ever had it so.
Bernie Sanders, a millionaire himself, criticizes the rich while using their advantages, which is odd. Although they are full of dramatic comments, these types of meetings lack substance. Democrats often criticize billionaires of harming democracy, despite their love of people like Michael Bloomberg, a billionaire who funds their campaigns. This is a double standard and plain hypocrisy. Bernie acts like an outsider even though he has been a part of the system for a long time. In the end, these rights are only political spectacle.
Who prosecuted sexual predators and...
The irony of this is obvious. Kamala Harris, a federal prosecutor known for locking up sexual criminals, joins Bill Clinton on stage, who has been plagued by allegations of sexual misconduct. While one has a vile past, the other claims to be fighting for justice. The discrepancy is readily apparent. Then Jon Stewart went on. He brought out yet another instance of the DNC's double standard. Not a single Palestinian voice was heard at the convention, despite their fervent online support for Palestinian independence. It is a waste of time to focus on diversity and inclusion. Stewart isn't afraid to point out that the DNC seldom fulfills its lofty promises. Soon after the DNC declared itself the Party of Joy, American Palestinians began to voice their displeasure at being completely ignored. There was silence. No voices, no representation. In her statement, Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib was blunt. As a Palestinian American, it's difficult not to feel invisible. While one side ignores us, the other disparages who we are. Ignoring us will allow the carnage to continue. The paradox was obvious. Despite their professed sympathy for Palestinians, none of them were given a voice on the DNC's major platform. It is hard to describe it as inclusive. It is, at best, theatrical, and, at worst, hypocritical. Then Kamala Harris blamed Trump for the crisis between Russia and Ukraine, despite the fact that her administration had been in power for 2 years. Jon Stewart didn't like that. In addition,
Urged Putin to invade our allies, said Russia could, quote, do whatever the hell they want. 5 days before Russia attacked Ukraine, I met with President Zelensky to warn him about Russia's plan to invade. I helped mobilize a global response, over 50 countries, to defend against Putin's aggression. And as president, I will stand strong with Ukraine and our NATO allies.
to being the queen of word salads, Kamala Harris is without a doubt the king of empty promises. When she made lofty promises about diplomacy, she was already the vice president. When she was in command, what happened? Life was lost, chaos ensued, and American foreign policy grew even more confused. Her attempt to blame Trump for the war in Ukraine was not only illogical, but also dishonest. Trump was out of power and had no control over U.S. foreign policy. In reality, Biden and Kamala had the burden, but they consistently shirk accountability. It's easy to blame. Take ownership of the situation? That is another story. The hypocrisy is exemplified by her. Left-leaning media outlets often ignore their own bias while blaming others for it, as former White House Press Secretary Jenny Psaki is doing here. If you have been following our videos, you already
and go, here's what we think is important to preserve and fight for, whatever.
No, everybody gets a zillion press releases and pitch calls, but no.
No. I'm talking about the head of it.
Oh, no. You determine, we determine, each of us for our shows, here's what I'm going to cover today, and here's what I'm going to talk about, and here's what I think is important, which there's an independence-ish of that. And there also is, you're not waiting to be told what to say about anything. You're going to say what you think. So people can trust that, and that is a good thing.
See, I disagree with that. I think it's not that you're able to be independent. It's that you're then a prisoner purely to the minute by minutes. Purely
You mean in terms of ratings?
The ratings, incentives, and all those other things. If you don't have the ideological component, right, then you don't have a governing authority of editorial authority, right? The greatest trick Roger Ailes ever played was he delegitimized editorial authority while exercising absolute steel trapdoor editorial authority.
The greatest thing he did, because it led them to be an arm piece, a mouthpiece of the right wing.
It led them to be exactly what he wanted it to be, which is an effective expression of his worldview.
And MSNBC, I am unburdened by not having, I can share whatever I think. I have obviously worked in Democratic politics for 20 years. I don't hide anything about that. It is a progressive leaning network. But nobody is, to the frustration at times of many elected Democrats, it is not a mouthpiece.
already know that Jen Psaki is utterly dishonest. We have shown, point by point, that MSNBC is just a propagandist for the Democratic Party. Furthermore, MSNBC has been under fire from non-conservative Bill Maher for their blatant bias and hypocrisy. Do I find Psaki's latest accusations shocking? Not at all. She regards dissent like a foreign language and lives in a hermetically enclosed echo chamber. It is clear that she is isolated from the outer world due to her media bubble. In actuality, Americans are aware of this and are presented with narratives that serve political agendas rather than the truth. I am aware that MSNBC could want to help the Democrats achieve a certain goal. If media outlets were transparent about their biases, that would be acceptable. But claiming MSNBC is objective? That is blatantly false. For party talking points, it's smoke and mirrors, giving the impression of honesty. MSNBC has a strong hold over the Democratic elite. Left-wing narratives are seldom questioned by media coverage, and dissident voices are either silenced or ridiculed.
Hours of Joe Scarborough shouldn't be allowed in this country. and then like Rachel Maddow, like it's schizophrenic at times. Like, yeah, I do think there should be some semblance of an idea that, look, they're kicking progressive ass right now. And if progressives don't organize their media, their think tanks, and all that, it's going to continue to happen. It's chaos.
Instead than reporting the news, they are influencing it while feigning objectivity. This intellectual dishonesty is hard to ignore. The biggest issue is denying that bias exists in the media everywhere. When Jen Psaki labels Joe Rogan and Theo Vaughn as right-wing media, it's clear that Jon Stewart is really perplexed. And who is at fault? The problem for the left is clear. Anybody who questions their views or offers a platform for opposing opinions is immediately labeled as right-wing. It's a tactless way to finish a discussion. This kind of thinking makes everyone who loves open communication the enemy. It's a kind of tribalism that passes for goodness. Theo Vaughn is a comedian. Podcast.
Broadly speaking, what I'm going to say Democrats, I'm going to say people on the left do not do that the right does very well is support within the system each other. I'm serious. And what I mean by this is this, right?
Yeah.
Theo Vaughn appears on Joe Rogan's show, right? He promotes what Joe Rogan's doing, but they all promote all of the things each other are doing and what the elected officials, I guess, are doing too. And the left is a little bit more kind of discombobulated in terms of supporting the different entities on the left. There is not a left ecosystem that matches the right ecosystem.
But Ailes didn't do that either. It was the principle, the ideological principles, not the party. He and Murdoch the same way. They're promoting an ideological worldview, right? That they believe is correct. And Theo Vaughn and Joe Rogan, I think, are different animals than any of this.
Master Joe Rogan interviews a diverse spectrum of individuals, including scientists, conspiracy theorists, and presidential candidates. However, since they don't always take the progressive stance, they are seen as right-wing. It is absurd and harmful to the right to free expression. Stewart's dismissal exposed the root cause, which was performance politics, media dishonesty, and a growing intolerance for criticism. When comedians who question the narrative are labeled as right-wing, something is amiss. It's becoming difficult to ignore the left's contradictions when they are brought to light by voices like Stewart's. The illusion is disintegrating. That brings an end to today's video. If you like it, kindly like and subscribe for more. We appreciate you watching.